Hi, I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is A Slice of New York. We're talking about the Bronx, specifically the South Bronx. Now, a lot's been going on here in the Mott Haven area, just across the river from Harlem. So, let's take a look. Let's get to it.
This neighborhood has changed hugely since the 70s and 80s when there was such a plague of arson and abandonment.
The bad old days were well documented, but now change is in the air, and the South Bronx is rising. I met up with the director of the Mott Haven History Keepers Project, Amy Starecheski, who happens to be a CUNY alum, at one of the neighborhood's trendy coffee shops, Motley Kitchen, to talk about the South Bronx, both then and now.
It's not a neighborhood where you're going to find a Starbucks. We don't have a big chain pharmacy here. It's really a neighborhood of small businesses and sort of neighborhood connections.
But back in the 1970s, the area was a symbol of urban decay. Fires raged, burned out buildings and abandoned lots were prevalent. Residents got a bad rap, accused of burning down the Bronx. But Starecheski and others say that is not what really happened.
The story of the Bronx burning is really not a story of individual local residents not taking care of their neighborhood. It's a story of real estate capital being pushed out of this neighborhood through racist redlining practices, people not being able to take care of their houses, and then a vicious cycle of rents going down, and eventually landlords oftentimes burning their buildings or letting them decay because they weren't able to get a profit out of them.
Starecheski says the city also played a role by closing firehouses in the area, and that when there were fires, they were not put out in a timely way. The building of the Cross Bronx and the Bruckner Expressways also served to split the community. Prior to the expressways, the area was vastly different.
This neighborhood was really wall-to-wall tenements and 4, 5, 6-story apartment buildings. It was an immigrant neighborhood. It was Irish and Italian. It's full of churches and community centers and theaters.
Was it thriving?
I would say it was thriving, and I would say it's still thriving in a lot of ways.
The Mott Haven History Keepers is working to preserve the area's rich history. The 10-person oral history project is funded by the National Endowment for the Humanities and Columbia University and supports people who are already working to save the history of the neighborhood.
And so we're providing training, mentoring, and just connections to kind of build a community of people in this neighborhood who care about the history.
There's a new Mott Haven that's sprouting up with gleaming residential towers on the waterfront. All of the positive change has had the support of the Bronx Borough presidents, from Fernando Ferrer and Ruben Diaz Jr. to Adolfo Carrion Jr. and Vanessa Gibson. Still, some have concerns.
I'm worried that people who've lived here for a long time won't be able to stay, that their kids won't be able to find apartments if they want to stay in the neighborhood.
Others we talk to are glad to see the change.
It's a beautiful change for the new generation of children to come. And beautiful charter schools, beautiful buildings. It's a beautiful change.
And a lot of businesses are opening around a lot because they see a lot of people are coming in. So it's helping out the neighborhood.
In the meantime, Amy has a suggestion for those who might want to check out this slice of New York.
I think in any neighborhood in New York, the best thing to do is just to walk around, to kind of get off the subway and walk towards something that catches your eye.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be in studio with two men who grew up in this area, and they've both written books about their life experiences. Stay with us. We want to delve a little bit deeper into this major change in the South Bronx. Here to tell us all about it, including the history and the future of the area, we have two guests. Oscar Rivera. He's chronicled life in the South Bronx during the 70s in a photo journal called Off the Rim, A South Bronx Story. And Willie Estrada, author of a book called The Dancing Gangsters of the South Bronx, Rise of the Latin Hustle. Welcome to both of you.
Welcome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you
Good
for
to have
having
you.
us, Mike.
Oscar, let's start with you first. Why did you decide to write this book?
There's so much said about the South Bronx that isn't true. I mean, it burned, yes, but there's such good people there, such hardworking people there, especially back then. And I had to be told. And I carried my photographs, my camera everywhere, and I photographed everything back then. So I just felt it had to be told.
Okay. And Willie, how about you?
Well, I mean, the story of the Latin Hustle had never really been told. And then the stories of the gangs are usually about violence. This one is a twist. This is about a gang that brought peace into the most violent area of the South Bronx through music and dance. That story is one that I'd like to tell. I'm working on a documentary based on the book as we speak.
That is a live picture, and obviously a major fire in a large building in the South Bronx region of New York City. That's a live picture, and obviously the fire department in the Bronx have their problem. My goodness, that's a huge place.
That's the very area where President Carter trod just a few days ago.
Oscar, when you hear people use that phrase, the South Bronx is burning or the Bronx is burning, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I happened to be watching the game that Cosell, the famous Howard Cosell, said that. That's when it was first said. And I was like, the Bronx is burning. That's just, that's just one tiny little building. What about us? What about the hardworking guys that are supporting the Yankees, that are doing this, that are doing that? It really pissed me off. It did. I was like, I can't believe he said that.
Willie, did you have a similar reaction to that whole phrase?
When I saw that, yeah, I mean, it was a dose of reality because we were surrounded by, what once used to be thriving neighborhoods that all mostly burned down by that time.
So what was it like, though, growing up in the South Bronx and in the 70s?
Well, I mean, in the 70s, a lot of violence in the early 70s, and you had to be a part of a gang if you wanted to feel safe and stuff like that. But it was a bit chaotic, but there was a lot of fun because remember, we played games on the streets in them days, in the parks. There was no technology, so we weren't distracted by that. So it was fun as well, even though everything was burning around us. We found
Literally.
Our resilience was strong though, and the music and dance helped us, prevail and work through those tough times because they were tough times.
How about you, Oscar? Was it tough or
No, it was tough.
Are we getting a different picture of the South Bronx when you hear guys like Cosell talk about it and people who didn't really live there?
Well, that's okay. Like you said, they didn't live there, so they couldn't understand. But there was families there, hardworking families. There was kids growing up playing sports, dancing like Willie. Right. There was a lot of stuff going on. Football was one of our ways out, big time. I mean, we played some serious football at St. Mary's Park.
That's it.
Baseball, Randalls Island was right there for us. That was like our biggest park. That was our central park, Randalls Island. But there was a lot going on in the South Bronx that people don't realize. It wasn't just burning buildings and gangs and killings and this and that. There was a lot of other stuff going on.
I was struck in looking at your book when you had the section where you talked about the Casitas.
Oh, la Casitas, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was with empty lots that people just got sick and tired of seeing them empty. And you can't give us a little piece of land because right away we want to build something and plant something, you know what I'm saying? So they took some 2x4s and started building their little casitas, and it felt like home. It felt like being back in Puerto Rico out in the El Campo, And
those little houses he speaks of, they were, shanties like that, shacks that were built, makeshift little houses out of plywood and beams and stuff like that. So, that's where I came from. You know what I'm saying? So what he's saying is 100% true.
You see them now, they're like little condominiums now.
Oh, yeah.
And what goes on there?
50-inch screens
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
They play dominoes, they watch the games, it's a little different now, but they plant their little gardens.
The gardens are amazing.
It's beautiful.
But
It's a beautiful
it's a sense
thing.
of community.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, especially for the older crowd.
How important was music to the South Bronx?
I think it was extremely important. Because you got to remember, when we came here, we weren't wanted here. You know what I'm saying? And we was very tightly knit Puerto Rican community when we first came because we had to be. Because we were bullied, and picked on and, we had to stick together. But it was the music and the dance that helped our resilience you know, and we persevered through it all because, you know, every weekend there was a party at my grandmother's house, every weekend. And because my uncles and my father had a band, we listened to live music because that's what it was all about, you know. And so music and dance was extremely important, and the community was so tight. Yeah. I actually saw when they started kind of coming apart after Vietnam started, you know, and then the South Bronx started changing. It started burning down more. And so
there was a decay that happened.
There was a decay, and it started in the 60s.
Absolutely.
Started in the 60s. People don't realize that, but it started in the 60s. And by the late 60s, I would say there was a night and day difference between the early 60s to the latter part of the 60s in terms of the Latino, Puerto Rican community and the violence that happened afterwards with the introduction of all these street gangs during the latter part of the 60s. And I was a part of all that because it had to be. If you weren't with the gang, you were going to get bullied every day or take your sneakers, take whatever. If you couldn't wear anything nice, of course, you'd get robbed. Especially when you went to a high school. I went to Mars High School. So there were kids from all over the place coming there, and they were all part of different gangs. So the violence was everywhere. Teachers were terrified.
And then things began to change, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Things got better.
But it was the music that helped that.
Music and sports.
Music and sports, yes, I would say
that's
that.
what got us out of trouble. Music and sports.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But we got to brag about, you know, our hip hop and our salsa.
Yeah.
That's a Bronx thing, you know.
Yeah,
what I'm
that's
saying?
a Bronx
We got to
thing.
brag about that. But those two things got us out of trouble.
Okay.
They did.
But now there's been another change in that area. And when I ride through there on the train or whatever, or go down in the car, I notice like these new gleaming towers that are sprouted up along the river there. What do you guys think of that?
You go first.
Gentrification, you know, because, you know, that's not built for us. You know what I'm saying? I live in the area, by the way, still. You know what I'm saying? Because I came back there to take care of Mom, who just passed away a couple of years ago. But I stayed because I live in a really nice building, too, and I have a great view. But, you know, you see it coming. And to be honest with you, to me, I like the way it looks. You know what I'm saying? I think they should make some of those things more affordable for some of the less fortunate people. But all in all, I'm happy for the positive change that it's bringing, comparing to sometimes when you walk down 149th Street and all the different volatile encounters you might see as you walk through that strip. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, I want to see that gone. All the junkies and all that stuff. I want to see all that gone. So I actually welcome the gentrification because of that. Our kids should not have to be subjected to watching these guys shoot up right there in front of everybody like it's okay. And police do nothing.
Do you think it turns it into like a real new, still authentic neighborhood though? A place where people can enjoy?
They're trying to keep some of that, which I kind of dig. It's nice, but you know, our people in that area should get hip to the fact of what's happening there, and they should get more involved because it's beautiful. It really is. They've done a tremendous change there.
Oh, that
And some of the
waterfront's gorgeous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of the little restaurants that are opening up, I noticed they're owned by who? Some of the local people that were there before, which is a great thing. You know, it really is.
Yeah.
But we need more of it. You know what I'm saying? And those developers that are there should take into account the fact that they should involve that neighborhood a little bit more. You know, just don't, you know, bring in all these $3,000 rents. And hey, what about the little guy that's been there forever, cleaning those same streets that now you're building these glorious towers at? That's my opinion, but I do love the fact that it's happening there. I mean, change is inevitable. But
When you talk to the people in the neighborhoods, what is their feeling about that, about the gentrification, about the building of the
50-50 from the people I've talked to. Some of them love it, some of them hate it. My advice to them is get involved. If you hate it, then get involved. Do something about it. Go open up a little something somewhere, anywhere. And while it's still available now, do it now.
Yeah.
And then you grow with it.
Because that's going to be tougher.
Oh,
as time goes
the later
on.
they wait, absolutely.
Do you think the city's doing enough to keep the people who are living in that area in that area?
Well, not necessarily, you know, I mean, let's not get it twisted, to excuse the phrase, but, you know, there's still a lot of things that need to be addressed, you know, and it is still one of the most disenfranchised areas in all the United States. People don't see how much diversity there is there, and poor people are there in abundance, and, you know, they're still being kind of, you know, oppressed and stuff like that to some extent. and some people are making great strides in educating themselves to lift themselves up and stuff like that, but there's a lot of poverty there.
Yeah.
There's still.
Yeah, I think the mean average income's like 30 grand, right? 29 grand.
30,000 a year.
Below the,
It's crazy.
the natural, poverty levels, yeah. So you see that, and it's evident, you know what I'm saying? And especially some of the older communities, community members, the ones that have been there forever, they're cool. They want to see change too, though. You know what I'm saying? They didn't have the opportunities that right now their children have, or their children's children. And, we push them to, educate yourself, because it's important, you know what I'm saying? Don't become a victim to the streets, because there's still a lot of violence there. There's a lot of drug violence there. The rival gangs fighting each other and people getting caught in the crossfires. It's still crazy, especially at nighttime, ghouls come out. But there's a lot of beauty there too, though.
I want to ask one other question about the two books, okay? It's an easy one here. Okay. Fastball down the middle. What do you want people to get out of your book?
The reason I wrote it, which is there's another window to the window you guys have seen the South Bronx in, okay? It was very family, sports, this, that. We didn't have the cell phones, we didn't have this, we didn't have that, but take a look at this. This is what was going on there while it was burning. It wasn't just about all the burning. Okay. That's what I really want them to get.
Okay. Willie, what did you want people to get from your book?
Well, I mean, we get stereotyped a lot, you know what I'm saying? And so I wanted them to see that out of something that may appear ugly, beautiful things were happening as well. You know what I'm saying? And the power and beauty of our resilience was fueled by music and dance.
I want to thank Oscar Rivera and Willie Estrada. Up next, we're talking to the president of the Bronx Economic Development Corporation. Stay with us. We'll be right back. I'm Mike Gilliam, and this is a slice of New York. We're talking with Rob Walsh, president of the Bronx Economic Development Corporation, about all of the development in the South Bronx. So, Rob, I got to ask you, are there other things in the pipeline? It's very impressive right now.
There are things in the pipeline, and thanks for having me on to talk about this. There's a lot more housing on its way. In the South Bronx, we have recaptured our waterfront, thank goodness, which opens it up to Bronxites and people who are visiting. And if you haven't been up to Mott Haven, what you are seeing is a growing corridor of small businesses, places to eat, places to visit, coffee shops, barbecue places. At night, people, coming to listen to jazz. It's really exciting to see what's happening in Mott Haven and the South Bronx.
I always find it's very interesting because this is not something that just sprang up overnight. This has been in the pipeline for a long time. I remember other borough presidents way back in the day talking about the redevelopment of that area, right?
Yeah, and it has, and there's been a lot of plans in the past, and it makes sense. If you think about Mott Haven, there's so much character. This is the place where pianos used to be developed, right, and created. There's a lot of beautiful old buildings there that have kept the character. The neighborhood has a lot of heart and soul. The neighborhood also has a community college. The Hip Hop Museum is coming soon. There's something called the Bronx Create Hub on Canal Street, where there are 90 artists, makers, entrepreneurs that are making things happen. So it's exciting to think. Tom DiNapoli, the state controller, recently came out with a report that said that there's 20% more jobs in the last decade in the South Bronx, which is tremendous given the ups and downs that we have seen in our city, but not here in the South Bronx. And I'm really bullish about it, and we're building off of that foundation.
Oh, it's absolutely great to see. You mentioned the Hip Hop Museum. Tell me a little bit about that and what's going on with that.
Well, it's really exciting what's happening with the Hip Hop Museum. It's not just the museum, and obviously the Bronx Borough President will be the first to tell you that hip hop was created and developed here in the Bronx. So we're going to be celebrating so many great artists, but it's also going to be a place where people are going to be living. The point. And I think this will be a wonderful anchor for the rest of the corridor of the South Bronx. We've seen our first children's museum open up in the Bronx. And I think arts, culture, housing, small businesses is what's driving the growth taking place in the South Bronx, and particularly the Mott Haven neighborhood.
Whenever you have gentrification in an area and the new buildings come in, there's always invariably a bit of pushback, because there are those who live in the neighborhood who say, I can't afford to live there. This is not for me. I mean, what's going on with that? Are those people being taken into consideration? Are there going to be housing opportunities for those that may not want to or cannot live in the high rises?
That's you're spot on, and I think the most important thing on any of these new developments, particularly these market rate developments, is to make sure that you have affordable housing components, and making sure that there are opportunities and that there's mixed use developments, and making sure that housing has retail on the ground floor. And what has happened in the South Bronx is this combination of affordable housing, market rate housing, opening up the waterfront. Now what we're seeing is retail corridors and places that people want to come to dine, to enjoy, and to visit. And I think we have to keep our eye on the ball to make sure that there is a mix with the old and the new.
Are there programs available to help people who might want to start businesses in the area?
Oh boy, you're singing my song here, and that's what our organization is all about. We just created a fund, a small business fund, for those who are looking to invest in the Bronx. And if I could talk about our website, you could find out about it. It's bxedc.org. And if you contact us and you're looking for assistance, whether you're looking to grow or you're looking to invest in the Bronx, we're ready here to help you. That's bxedc.org.
And lastly, what's your message to people who might want to make this little slice of New York home in the future?
The Bronx is a very special place. The borough president talks about this all the time. We are a very special place of neighborhoods, of small businesses. It is a place that you'll be comfortable, and it's a place of opportunity. We are seeing a real incredible renaissance taking place in the Bronx. And for those who are interested, be part of it.
Okay, I want to thank Rob Walsh. He's the president of the Bronx Economic Development Corporation, for joining us. Thank you for joining us as well. I'm Mike Gilliam. We'll see you next time on A Slice of New York.